Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Nady, and welcome back to, I don't know, mini murder mysteries? What is this called? What are we even doing? I can't call this cold blood and cocktails because this just isn't the same, but same concept. Anyways, as you beautiful people know, any tiff you may have, please cast it away because this is a channel of positive energy, okay? Thank you. Oh, my little sea otters, how you doing today? I hope wherever you're at in the world, you're having a great day so far. I myself am doing fabulous. I am on a cruise ship. If you haven't seen the other episode that we did, definitely check it out, but I feel like I did a pretty damn good job with the lighting. You would never know I'm on a ship, except for the curtain swinging behind me, because much like my life right now, this ship is rocky. But during my travels, I'm really wanting to incorporate stories from where I travel, as well as just plain old murder mysteries. Today, I'm in Bermuda, and I heard tell of a case that I simply must share. When I think of Bermuda, I think of that one Beach Boys song, which that alone makes me want to come here. But add a twisted murder mystery into it, and honey, I'm sold. For today's case, we're gonna start on a scorching Bermuda day in October of 1878. The titty sweat and swamp ass was real this day, but that didn't matter to a lovely woman named Anna Skeeters. She looked rather dashing too with her bad mama self coming back from church. She was 44 and the white linen dress she was wearing complemented her deep skin magnificently. Anna was dainty, she was a hard worker and was an especially loyal wife, which honey, that isn't always a good thing. She needed some self-respect and to cut off the umbilical cord from her husband and maybe cut off his dick while she was at it too. It's one of those kinds of stories. Her husband, Edward, was poking his chicken beak into every food trough around town, if you know what I mean. And it wasn't as though he really hid the fact that he was playing hide the weasel either, which was just utter bullshit because his indiscretions made it so that no one wanted to come visit Anna and have some tea and cookies with her. And this is extra sad because she made some mean coconut macaroons. God, those little bastards are good. She was as sweet as a Georgia peach pie, but all anyone could do was pity her when they came over, and nobody wants to be part of a pity party. But like really, how could you not feel bad for her? Not only was her husband Ed a dirty lying cheating scumbag, but anytime she'd bring up his sleeping around, he'd beat her for it. God, this is like the color purple. But that was exactly the case on this very Sunday morning. That morning before church, she'd asked Ed to stop seeing other women, which I think is a fair request. Well, because of this, she now had to sit in the back row so nobody saw her freshly cut lip. For some time, Edward had been seeing this rather bossy alpha woman and her two daughters. They lived not too far away and he would help them on their farm. Now, rumor has it that he planted quite a few seeds, if you catch my drift. He'd certainly dug his shovel into the mother and one of the two daughters' gardens. One of the daughters became mysteriously pregnant, and unless her name was Mary, I'm pretty sure we know who deflowered her lily pad. Well, that morning after church, the daughter Ed hadn't knocked up, walked up to Anna and started mocking her about her husband's indiscretions. What a skank, right? And she wasn't quiet about it either. People were staring and pointing and laughing at poor Anna. This just wasn't fair. Her husband was off having children with other women like he was just baking cakes. His own children with Anna had died while they were infants, and he had no interest in ever having more with her. But this was the 1800s. You don't leave your husband. That just isn't a thing. And despite the fact that slavery had recently become abolished, women were still subservient to men. They were there to deliver the men hot toddies and warm handies, and the men were just allowed to do whatever the fuck they wanted. Ed's behavior really wasn't that uncommon, though. Men would have children with anyone who'd lay on their back long enough to have a good time. They'd beat any woman or child up, and this shit was acceptable. Well, at least to men. But Anna was a human. She had feelings, and those feelings were hurt, damn it. She skulked off to their little cottage on the water later that evening and thought, you know what? I'm finally leaving his ass. You go, Anna. We are all rooting for you. Edward stumbles on home drunkenly, his fly still unzipped from a late-night rendezvous with Betsy, or maybe her name was Bonnie. He couldn't remember, and it didn't matter. What did matter was that he had a piping hot meal waiting for him on the table when he got home. But when he walked in, he didn't smell fried pork belly or even garlic and potatoes. No, nothing, just a really fishy smell from the ocean coming in from the open windows. Well, I'll be a buttfuck, thinks Ed. Did she finally leave me? She had left several times in the past, but she always came back within a few days like a sad stray puppy. He went over to the neighbors to ask if they'd seen Anna, but not a peep. The next day, Edward heads over to the local newspaper to take out an ad, albeit the cheapest spot with the smallest print, but an ad nonetheless. He said, my woman Anna is gone. If you see her, I'll give you $2 and 3 pumps. What a guy. A few days go by, and when people start questioning Ed, he said, well, I returned home Sunday and all Anna's clothes were gone. My life savings of $6 was missing, and so was her suitcase. But this shit made as much sense as a disco ball made of carpet. Suspicious as fuck. None of the neighbors believed that he was clueless to her whereabouts. Couldn't fool them for a second. Mainly because Anna had literally nowhere to go, and with her track record, she'd usually be back by now. And equally as suspicious is the fact that somebody had spoken with Anna late Sunday evening about a coaling job for Ed, which son of a bitch he just happened to show up to on Monday morning. Which means he had to have spoken to Anna late Sunday night, contrary to him saying he hadn't seen her since Sunday morning. Ooh, honey, somebody got their balls in a trap. Yet, according to the hustler's story, when he'd returned home Sunday evening, she was gone. Oh, these pancakes ain't stacking up, Cletus. Well, fortunately, most of the neighbors had been Anna's friends and supported her like an expensive bra. A whole gaggle of gals went to the police to say their piece, but the justice just wouldn't have it. Remember, at this sad point in time, women really were no better than a box of Raisinets. The cops were like, sure, Ed is probably the handsiest man we know, but he's also the handiest man we know. A jack of all trades who could fish, he could sew, he could express your cat's anal glands. He was just one of the sweetest and most intelligent people the cops knew. Which may have been true despite him sticking his willy in every wonka in town. But you do not fuck with pissed off women. They are the most powerful things next to whoever you pray to. The female friends of Anna's told everyone in town exactly what they thought had happened, and soon a gigantic mob formed around their cottage. Hell no, you're a hoe, they were chanting as they broke down the door to search the home. For his own protection, the police ended up throwing Ed in jail, which really sucked for him because he was super claustrophobic. But do we feel bad for him? Probably the fuck not. Begrudgingly, the police decide that this whole missing Anna ordeal would simply have to be looked into, I guess. Murders in Bermuda in the late 1800s were pretty rare, so rare in fact that it took a whole fucking year to assemble a search party for Anna. I'd be so pissed if I were Anna, like the people who are supposed to be protecting you care so little about you that it took a year for them to pull their dicks out of their mouth to do their jobs. Jeez Louise. They finally did a formal search of the cottage, one that wasn't led by an angry mob, and they found a little tiny fishing boat right off of their property. But everyone had fishing boats. This was not a big deal. What everyone didn't have, however, were blood-stained white garments shoved into the back of their closet, which, my goodness, Ed had a whole damn year to burn that shit and it just slipped his mind. I think Ed's light bulb is missing a few filaments. Unfortunately, though, this was 150 years ago. There was no such thing as forensics, so was this blood or was it rust? And of course, when Ed was asked, he was like, yeah, it's totally rust. Yep, Ed kept professing his innocence, saying that Anna must have sailed off to a new life in New York from the infamous sailing ship that left Bermuda. Nobody except the local drunks believed him. He had a motive. He was very hot-tempered. He was a known wife-beater, but without a body, he couldn't yet add murderer to his repertoire. Well, that was about to change. On a blustery Sunday, Anna's brother and a few of his friends, all seamen, giggity, they gathered on the highest point of the island. They could see the waves rushing across the reef, except one spot looked really curious. Things weren't quite flowing like they should, and if you looked closely, you could see something deep in the water disrupting the current. A few days later, once the wind died down, a group of people rowed out to the spot with some ropes and hooks. It took hours, but finally they hauled up a large, smooth rock. Normally, you wouldn't think anything of hauling up a huge-ass rock from the ocean, except this had no barnacles on it, which means the stone that was pretty far out to sea had been placed there from land. And no sooner had they brought this rock up than a skeletal torso floated up to the surface. Well, I'll be a titty twist if similar stones didn't line the backyard of Ed and Anna's cottage. How about that? So the police hire a diving team, and there on the bottom of the ocean were Anna's petticoats and a chunk of her hair that was still tied in the same knot she'd worn to church that Sunday. Oh, that's so sad. We were rooting for her. Ed, of course, was immediately charged with murder, but not before yet another pissed-off mob of angry women came and tried to pull his limbs off. In court, he pled not guilty, but so much more started coming to light. Anna had a child from a previous marriage that had been mentally impaired and didn't live with her anymore. She'd visit this child as often as she could, and this young girl was a comfort for Anna during her abusive 8-year marriage to Ed. Anna never complained about her life. Everyone regarded her as a lovely and quiet woman who just turned a blind eye to her husband's very public affairs. But in those days of wives really being nothing more than punching bags, being nice didn't keep you alive. On trial, when Ed was asked about Anna's frequent bloody lashes, he giggled remorselessly and was like, it's not that my lashes were hard, it's that her stupid skin was like paper. This brought back less than pleasant memories to the court, who were still trying to work through being beaten by their slave owners. I think the final nail in Ed's coffin was probably when it came out that his mom had washed Anna's bloody clothes after she'd been murdered. A mother's dying love. The next week, Ed was hanged with a positively buzzing and unnaturally large group of women around the gallows. I heard they set up popcorn stands and were selling Ed Sucks t-shirts, but that's just a rumor. The night before his hanging, he had confessed everything to the local newspaper and was eerily calm when they put the noose around his neck. In his eyes, his confession meant that he was just cleared of all his sins. Okay, Edward. Apparently, on the night of her murder, Edward had thrown a lit oil lamp at Anna when she confronted him about one of his many affairs. When he saw the burn marks all over her face and scalp, he was like, well, I'm fucked if anybody sees this, so he choked her. Yeah, that makes sense. She put up a valiant fight for her life, and the man struggled with her for 10 minutes straight. And as he was walking away, she came back to life with a gasp of air, and that's when he took her out onto the boat, tied a rock around her, and plunged her into the ocean. With a very slight touch of poetic justice, the same rock that was used to sink Anna's body was used as Ed's gravestone. And the night that Ed was hung from the gallows, a giant mob formed in front of their cottage and torched it in Anna's honor. her. I'm really not sure if that was the best option to do, but it seemed kind of sentimental in the moment, I'm sure. Fatefully, the side piece that Ed had impregnated ended up dying during childbirth as well as the baby. But to this day, a piece of rope that held Anna to the stone is still preserved in the Bermuda archives. People still say they see Anna dancing around on the cliff's edge, stomping and probably peeing on Ed's grave. Wouldn't we all? And don't forget, you can watch this whole video uncensored on YouTube at Poplux. Anyways, my loves, there you go. Thank you so much for being here. I love having you. And if you want just a little bit more me in your life, head over to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Poplux. You get videos a day early, you get Patreon-only content, you get a Patreon-only store, and best part, it's cheap, fun, and fancy, just like me. You can follow me on YouTube at Poplux and on Instagram and Twitter at officialnady. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all, and I will see you again soon. Bye.